Chris, thank you for doing this. We're backstage with the bass player for Muse, the band headlining tonight, the Fox presenting Muse and Band of Skulls. It's been about 20 years, I was reading, that you guys have been a band. It can't possibly seem, Chris.
Yeah, it will be 20 years.
20 years.
Next January, yeah. It was January 94 was when we had our first rehearsal. But, I mean, we'd known each other for a couple of years before that anyway, because there's like a little scene of bands that was happening at the school we were at. And I think probably from around 91 or 92, there was about 4 or 5 school bands, and Matt and Dom were in a band together, and I was the school year below them, so I was in a band with the brother of the singer from Matt and Dom's band.
Okay.
So we always used to hang out anyway, you know, and I think as time went on, a lot of those bands, you know, obviously broke up and people lost interest, and I was playing drums in a band at the time, and Matt and Dom's band had split up, and they were looking for a bass player who could do backing vocals. And they were kind of working in one room at the school, and I was in the band in the other room. And they just kind of came in one day and asked me if I wanted to play the bass and do some backing vocals, and I'd never played bass before, but thought I'd give it a go, you know.
Yeah. How many serious bands were you in before Muse?
Well, I don't think any of them were really serious. I mean, it was all cover bands, really.
Okay.
But you know, maybe 2 or 3. I mean, like I said, there was just a whole bunch of people that were in bands, and you know, people were swapping bands all the time. You know, I mean, one of the bands that I was in, I actually replaced Matt.
Oh,
as
no
the
way.
guitarist. Yeah, Matt joined Dom's band, and then I left the band I was in to replace Matt in the band that he was in. So it was just like that. You know, people were moving around bands all the time, and it was just all a bit of fun, really. You know, we used to get together on the weekends and do gigs in people's houses and gigs at the school and wherever we could, really. It was just fun. It was more of a social thing than
And now
anything
suddenly
serious.
you're playing like 20,000 seaters, you know, you're doing Wembley Stadium size arenas and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's incredible. It must be just a trip to look back at your career.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty mental, really, when you think about, you know, where it all came from, and that, you know, we are effectively a school band.
We're effectively like we're playing in your basement of your house.
Exactly.
sort of band,
Yeah,
which is
and it's
pretty rad.
You know, I think it is pretty rare. You know, there's not that I know of. I don't think there's too many bands that got together at school and carried on to have a career. You know, I mean,
No.
U2, I guess, are one of them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know too many others, really, that, you know, bands that got together from such a young age and managed to hold that original lineup together for such a long time, you know.
You know, I've never seen your band live. I mean, I've seen a lot of the stuff, of course, on YouTube and everything else. You were mentioning, you know, initially when you guys were starting off, it was, you know, covers and stuff like that. Do you guys do much covers when you're playing as Muse now today?
Not really, no. I mean, we did Feeling Good, which was on our second album.
Right.
That was fairly regular in the set, that one. But I think on this album, we've only played it 2 or 3 times. You know, it's the kind of thing that we'll do now and again. And I think, you know, when back in the days when B-sides were relevant, you know, we used to do covers and stuff for that, you know. But it's not something we do a lot of, no.
Right. We're talking with the bass player for Muse. His name is Chris. It's Wolstenholme, right?
That's right, yeah.
What is it about your band, dude? NME, Consequence of Sound, Billboard, you name the publication, name the magazine, best band on the planet. What is it about your band, man? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on which edition of the magazine you read, really. Yeah. I mean, I think the British press have always been a bit fickle, you know, and, you know, one minute they love you, the next minute they hate you, and then they love you again. But I don't know. I feel like we've been a band that have never really been too influenced by what the press have said. You know, we've just always gone about and done our thing. And I think particularly in the UK, you know, over the last, you know, 15 years while we've been, you know, doing this properly, you know, we've seen so many bands come and go, and so many, I don't know, kind of fads happen, you know, where there's all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of bands that are associated to a particular scene, and it kind of blows up, and then it just dies away again, and then the next thing pops up, you know. And that's what's happened in England for the last 20 years, and we've never really been part of any scene. We've never been lumped in with any other bands or anything like that. We've just always done our own thing and sort of run along the side of all of these fads that keep popping up, you know. So, you know, I think, you know, from our point of view, the press has not really had much of an influence, because they seem to be much more fascinated with these fads that happen, you know. And it's kind of nice not to be associated with a scene, because when this whole scene collapses, you're safe. You know, you're not a part of it. You know.
Yeah, you know what I like about your band, about Muse, is you kind of, I don't want to say, you almost, it's like you test your fans. You know what I mean? Like you know, you're not putting out certain. It's not like the Resistance Part 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that you guys are trying new things, and that you know, it's not necessarily what you would expect out of the band.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like that a lot.
I think we've always tried to, you know, take risks in the music. You know, I think almost every album's been like that, particularly from, you know, I guess, you know, Absolution onwards. You know, I mean, even Origin of Symmetry to a point. You know, I mean, when you think about how different that album was to the first album, you know, and it can be quite risky sometimes, because, you know, when we did the first album, you know, it didn't set the world on fire or anything, but it built up a solid foundation of fans, and, you know, and then obviously we came out with Origin of Symmetry, which was a very different vibe to the first album, and I think we've just continued with that, and I think we're lucky in a sense, because our fans, they know that when we release a new album, they know that they're not going to get the same thing again. You know, they expect a change. I think if you record 3 or 4 albums and stick to a formula, and you kind of set yourself up as one thing, and then all of a sudden on your 4th or 5th album decide, oh, we're going to do this now. Then it's
what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah, but we've evolved with each album, and I think people just know what the score is with us. They know that that's what we're going to do, and they know that we're not the kind of people that are going to repeat ourselves musically.
Yeah, I think AC/DC is the only band that's allowed to do that. Otherwise,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Chris, I'm curious, how does Muse decide on what makes the set list? What are we going to hear tonight at Rogers Arena, and how do you pick it? Is it a like arm wrestling thing? Is it leg locks?
It always seems
ping pong tournaments. Like, what is it?
It always seems pretty obvious to us what the set should be. You know, I mean, I think before we go out on tour, we go into rehearsals for, you know, months, and you know, obviously the first priority is to learn how to play the new songs live. You know, the new of whatever the new album is, and you know, for us it's always been, you know, when you go on tour, you want to play as much of your new album as possible, and the best of everything else that you've done beforehand. You know,
well, that's to taste though, because you might like something that Matt doesn't like. You know what I'm saying? That maybe Dominic's like, yeah, I mean, man, I'm kind of sick of playing that song, guys. Let's move on.
There are always the odd songs that, you know, one of us might throw up as a possibility, and the other two will go, nah, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I think there are just certain songs, you know, you just know Time Is Running Out is going to go in the set. You know. Yeah, songs like Stockholm Syndrome, you know, you want to put in the set.
Great song.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's always one that the crowds just love. You know, but at the same time, I mean, what we've done on this tour, we have certain points in the set, and obviously with the production, because there's so much video content going on, it's very difficult to change it too much. So we have, I guess, what you call the spine of the set, and then we have a bunch of songs that we can swap on a nightly basis. So, you know, we worked out what those songs were going to be before we toured. So we know that, you know, one night we might play Stockholm, the next night we might play Newborn instead. You know, there's a whole bunch of these that will rotate, and then there's obviously the key songs that we'll play every night. You know.
How did you decide on Band of Skulls to open up? Great choice.
I think Dom picked them actually. I think Dom's the guy in the band who's got his finger on the pulse when it comes to new bands. You know.
Yeah.
And. Yeah, I think it was his idea. I didn't really know a lot about them before they toured with us, and I've caught a bit of their set on 2 or 3 nights, and they're great, really good band.
Yeah, very good band. They're on for 7 o'clock tonight. I'm curious, you know, like we were initially saying right out of the gate there, you guys have been 20 years for a band. Massive accolades, critically acclaimed band. You've won awards, you've toured the world, you've sold 15, 20 million albums, something like that. What's your most proudest accomplishment for the band Muse?
I think if there's any one moment that would stand out, it would probably be the first time we did Wembley Stadium. I think. I think, you know, when
a headliner.
As a headliner. Yeah, I think when you know,
what does that hold? 50,000? Is it?
No, it's about 75, 80,000. Yeah, we did. The first time we did 2 nights there in 2007.
Wow.
And it's kind of one of those moments where you have these ambitions and these dreams as a kid when you start in a band, and you kind of have these ambitions that are sort of semi-realistic, and then you've got the things that you just think are way beyond what you'll ever really achieve, but you still think about them.
We'll headline Wembley.
Exactly, yeah. And then when it, obviously it happened, and it was one of those gigs that we didn't really want to do it, because not that we didn't want to do it. When it was first mentioned to us by management and agents and people like that, we thought they were crazy. It was just like, there's no way we're big enough to do that, because that jump from doing an arena to a stadium is huge. It's the biggest jump of all.
Sure.
And then we reluctantly decided to try it. And I think the first one sold out in half an hour, And before we'd actually even woken up the next morning, the second night was already on sale.
So you're calling your mom, calling your dad.
Yeah, exactly.
You still think this is a bad idea?
So it was, that was great. And obviously the night itself, it was probably the most worked up I'd ever got over a gig in my life. Most gigs when you're on tour, they're part of a tour and you just take them as they come. Whereas Wembley was a bit of a standalone gig that was completely different to anything else that we were playing around that time. And for about 4 months beforehand, although we were on tour, Wembley was just in the back of everyone's mind. Exactly, yeah.
It's coming.
And there was obviously the production side of things we had to sort out, but obviously just little things like the phone going every 5 minutes. Everybody's families wanted to go because it was just such an occasion for everybody.
Yeah.
So there was about 4 or 5 months of like real stress, and the more that it went on, the more nervous we got, and particularly the week leading up to it. I was in a
butterflies, stomach aches.
I was just in a mess permanently.
Just thinking about it.
Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And then when we got on stage and we started. I think for the first 3 or 4 songs, we'd made a bit of an agreement that we wouldn't look at the crowd. We'd just don't get carried away. Just focus on playing. And then once we got into it, it was amazing. I think we played for about 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it just flew by. Just before we knew it, we were back in the dressing room. Like, wow, what happened?
That just happened.
Yeah.
I'm curious
Exactly.
on another accolade for your band. Can you remember where you were when? Who would tell you, hey, you guys have sold 1 million albums? Do you remember that? Because that to me would seem like a pretty massive milestone.
I don't know. I don't think that ever happened. But the thing is, because I think in the early days, the way we were set up earlier is we didn't have a global record deal. And we were signed to a production company, and then all the record deals were just licensed to different countries.
Oh, okay.
So I guess there was never really that one person or that one company to tell us that we've sold 1 million records. We sold 50,000 in France and maybe 150,000 in the UK, and all these different countries. It was all very, very separated. So no, I don't think there ever was really a moment where it was like. I remember the first time we got a gold record.
Oh yeah. Where was that?
That was after Glastonbury. I think we played Glastonbury Festival in 2000, and we were playing quite early on the second stage. And we walked off stage and had a great gig, and the record company was stood there with these gold discs for us. So
nice.
I remember that quite well.
Right on. I'm curious, are you guys hockey fans? Because of course we did a contest with you guys where brought Fox listeners backstage. Hey, battle the band Muse at ping pong, which is a great idea, by the way. But are you guys are you hockey fans? Of course, you're sitting in the catacombs that is the Vancouver Canucks, man.
I don't know a lot about hockey, but I do like it. I think last time we were here, we got a couple of games in, and it was great. It was really, really exciting sport. It's kind of non-stop. I love football, English football, and it's a similar kind of thing, isn't it? Where it's just constant, always going. That's why I can't get into American football, because
it's not
just
the same.
stop start. The whole it takes 4 or 5 hours to play an hour game.
Right, and the last 4 minutes takes an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I really liked hockey because it just doesn't stop, and you get to see a punch up, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. Speaking of not stopping, when are you guys stopping? Is there a stop-start moment for you, or is it just non-stop?
We generally do 3 or 4 weeks of touring, and then we take 10 days to 2 weeks off. And this is actually the last gig of the first leg of the North American tour. I think we've got a small gig to do in LA the day after tomorrow, and then we go home for 10 days.
Right.
And then back to North America to carry on.
What would you be doing if not the bass player in Muse?
I've absolutely no idea. I'd never really thought about it. I think, I started playing the guitar when I was about 10 or 11, and I was just always convinced that this was what I was going to do. I didn't really have I didn't have a plan B. I tried to go to college and dropped out after a year. I was just so into music that I was, particularly once we started this band when we were 15 years old, I couldn't see any other life really. It was just what I wanted to do, and I was absolutely convinced that this is what I was going to do. So I honestly couldn't tell you. I just don't know.
Right on. Well, congratulations on all the success, and thank you for having us backstage here, and looking forward to seeing your band tonight.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Right on.
Cheers.
I appreciate the time.
Nice one. Cheers.